doing this, by the way.
Yeah, man. Thanks for joining.
It's cool.
All right. What's up, everybody? I think people could see you, Matt. Hey, this is the HFPod team. We are all here, and we have a special guest, Charlie Dirksen. How you doing, man? Thanks for joining us.
Doing fine, thank you.
We appreciate having you on, and we will look at your set list notations for this 6/19/95 Deer Creek show soon, because there's some in-depth shit in there that we need to explore.
In depth.
So Charlie's coming to us from Massachusetts, and as we kind of wait for people to gather, we've been asking people, how you doing these days in amidst several global crises?
You asking me?
Yeah.
Oh God.
Nobody cares what we think, man.
Yeah. I mean, I'm alive. It's an incredible time for the country. I mean, it's wonderful to be employed. I feel extraordinarily privileged. But everybody knows people who have lost their job or worse, have gotten sick, if not also died. So it's a very difficult, challenging time. So I try not to think about it, to be honest.
Yeah. Sorry to start with that.
No, it's okay. I wasn't ready for it, obviously.
Yeah.
It's like, and now I'm going to start crying.
Way to bring it down, RJ.
Thank you.
Way to go, man.
We almost always get at least 3 minutes in before someone cries. So that would have been a record. So I'm here with Brad and Jonathan and Matt, as always. And people watching, if you have questions for Charlie, I think someone on this video chat is monitoring the YouTube comments. So ask questions. Charlie's up for questions, a lot of them. Right, Charlie? No.
I never agreed to questions, but if you say so, RJ.
That's a good point.
I thought I was just going to be talking.
Yeah, that's true. So Charlie, obviously you have been into Phish for a while. I say obviously for the people who follow you on Twitter and have followed you on, rec.music.phish and phish.net. Can you give us your quick Phish intro story, how you got introduced to the band and where you first saw them?
Yeah, I mean, I was in college at Boston College from 1988 until 1992. I first heard Phish in a dorm room in my freshman year in 1988 at BC from a friend of mine who was on my floor. His sister went to I don't think it was UVM. I think it was more like UNH, but she was a huge Phish fan, and so she was feeding Phish to including Junto, when it came out, like the first one, that fall. And so I heard it, and I really liked You Enjoy Myself. That was the first song that I was like, okay, that's not your ordinary rock song, to say the least. I was really impressed by that. And somewhat hilariously, though, the Molly show not the November one, but I think it was the December Molly show in '88. I had the opportunity to go, but because my friend said it was going to cost $5, I was like, $5, for a band called Phish with a PH. So so I didn't make it to that show. And then the Paradise show started happening in January of '89, and I had the opportunity to go to that one. Same kind of thing. It was like $10, and I was like, what, 100% price increase in 40 days. I'm not kidding. This is true. And
that's right down the street.
It was money. I was primarily a Grateful Dead fan, and money. You're in college, first year, freshman, and money short supply. So eventually I made it to the Paradise in October of '89. And the only reason I even know that was my first show is because miraculously I somehow saved the stub. And I wasn't really saving stubs back then. And a lot of shows didn't even have stubs. So it's kind of just, it's still to this day mind blowing to me that I have that stub from 10/6/89. And it became actually more important when I started getting online for Phish set lists and stuff. And it turned out there was no set list for 10/6/89. And so it wasn't even listed as a show. And this was in 93, and so right away I was like, hey guys, you don't know me, but I know that this 10/6/89 Paradise show happened because I have the stub. And it was my first show. So it was, anyway, I didn't really get, I was a Grateful Dead fan primarily, and fan of a lot of classic rock. So I didn't really get it with Phish until 93 Wolf Trap was really when I truly fell in love. And I had a whole bunch of Phish tapes at that point, don't get me wrong, and I was still a fan. But like Amy's Farm, for example, I had the opportunity to go to Amy's Farm, and I was like, drive to Maine with all the black flies? Are you crazy? So so I missed Amy's Farm because of the black flies that probably weren't even a problem. You know, you can talk to Parker Harrington about that. But that's the thing. It's like, so there are a lot of things I missed. I also don't know how many shows I saw in those early years of the 90s because I know I saw something according to some old notes I just saw, but I don't have a stub for them. But it wasn't a lot. It would have been only no more than a few shows that I don't have subs for from the early 90s. But 93, July 93 Wolf Trap is really when I think I became like, you know, like the sky opened, you know, and I needed to see Phish at all costs. So sorry, that was probably too long.
I have a lot of friends for whom that was their first show, actually. So it's a good one.
And I'm sitting here in Alexandria, Virginia right now, wondering, every time I go to Wolf Trap, I'm like, man, Phish played here. And like, I guess you guys
right.
It's gorgeous.
Had to have known when they played there, like this was only going to happen once, right?
You know, it was also really, what was also messed up is that on the way out of Wolf Trap that night, I ran into a cop who was this beautiful young blonde woman who I grew up across the street from. And she was only like 25 or 26. She was like, but she's a cop. And she was like, she like cussed and was like, I can't believe you're here. Cause you know, there were a lot of wooks even at that point, a fair amount. And things were obviously pretty chill, but compared to a lot of the scene now, but she couldn't believe I was there. And because it's such a beautiful venue, you know, it's just incredible. And we were, and also there's a lot of trash. Unfortunately, people left a lot of trash on the lawn at Wolf Trap that day. And my friend Marcy, who helped start the Mockingbird Foundation, I remember she in particular, I think even arguably started green, you know, the green grounds crew. She helped get into start that whole thing in part because of the trash at Wolf Trap. No joke. It was that trashy.
Yeah, I mean, being able to bring in your own coolers and beers and whatever is an
invitation to
it just doesn't mix well with this crowd, even in those days when it was a lot more chill than what it became.
And speaking of which, somebody mentioned in the chat earlier, we already had a comment about the Sammy Smith that Charlie's drinking. Maybe we should all go around and share what we're sipping on right now. Charlie, maybe starting with you and why you're drinking a Sammy Smith.
I'm drinking a Sammy Smith because I drank them on June 19th, 1995. I'm certain of it, in the lot at Deer Creek, especially post-show, because a friend of mine was selling them. So I had got ice cold Sammys after the show.
Nice.
Or at least one, because I was driving. Maybe no more than one.
I am also drinking a stout, but this is Adventure Brewing from here in Fredericksburg, Virginia. And it's whatever there's one of their stouts. I don't remember which.
I have a Sweetwater IPA, which is tasty. Brad, what do you got over there?
I'm drinking the Old Reliable, which is Bell's Two Hearted, in my favorite this is like the portable refrigerator. This is my second. This is the second I had in my little. They're great though.
And I mentioned Alexandria a second ago. I'm drinking a Port City Interroll IPA from Alexandria. Represent right down the road.
Excellent.
Nice.
Excellent. Charlie, you were involved with the internet and Phish from early on, and that is
very early on. Yeah,
that's all I'll say. How did that start, and how did you get involved? Because when you said that you were saying, "Hey guys, I'm here," like I have a set list.
Yeah,
I thought you were that guy that people went to.
No. In '93, I was getting packs of data through miscellaneous computers, so I would download Rec Music Phish in like giant blocks of text. I was not like on the interwebs that we know today, and I don't remember who I first reached out to. It may have been Ellis, frankly, Ellis Goddard, obviously, who helped found the Mockingbird Foundation, and also was working a lot on Fishnet back in those days. but there was a bunch of other people. It may have been Shelley Culbertson, who I may have reached out to, Lee Silverman, Mike Weitzman. But there's a bunch of people that I just can't remember who I reached out to. But I reached out to somebody and was like, who's doing the edits on this thing? And I think I got the setlist file from Ellis the first time, the text version of it, in January '94, which is when I made my first post to Rec Music Phish. And hilariously, I posted my address in that post because I wanted to trade tapes with people. And somebody immediately emailed me and was like, dude, you post, is that really your address? You're not supposed to do that. And I was like, oh, fuck it. I lived on, for those of you who know, I'm sorry.
It's fine.
Okay.
I lived on Old Georgetown Road. So for those of you who know Bethesda, it's like the house that I lived in at that time, was razed to the ground, probably more than a decade ago. It was right across from NIH and National Institute of Health on Old Georgetown Road. And I lived in that place, 9016. I remember the address, Old Georgetown, for a couple of years around that time. And but yeah, so I was not on like the first initial email list for Phishnet. I was on, but I was involved in Rec Music Phish, at least paying attention in 92, 93. 92, I can't remember if I may have gotten some data in 92 about it, but it was probably more like 93. I was working a lot back then as a paralegal for a large corporate law firm. Just insane hours because at the time I didn't have a girlfriend, and I spent money only on, well, things I can't mention, and then like Grateful Dead, like going to see, Jerry band shows. Like I saw a whole bunch of Jerry band shows in early 90s. And but yeah, 94 was when I got into Rec Music Phish. But I started, taking over trying to help with the set list. So, but I wasn't good at, I wasn't programming. Ellis was doing that stuff on the internet.
You were just critiquing everybody's content.
So. Well, no, yeah. I mean, I started posting on Rec Music Phish fairly regularly in 94, primarily inspired by Tweezer. When I started, picking up on all the improvisation that was going on, getting tapes, particularly in Tweezer, Mike's Groove, and You Enjoy Myself in like 92, 93. And when you start developing a grand tape collection, that's when you really start to appreciate all the improvisation, which is sort of obvious to say, but that's what it was like in 92, 93, 94, when I was getting all these tapes. And it started through Grateful Dead connections. Some Deadheads were like, loving Phish and were just sending me free tapes, like Arrowhead Ranch and shit like that, which I didn't have, in 91. I didn't have Arrowhead Ranch until I think 92. But anyway, so I fell in love with Phish's music in general, but I didn't really get it until Wolf Trap in 93. But I was picking up on the improvisation. And then, of course, in August 93, once I started hearing the August 93 shows, my mind was completely blown. And I started reviewing like Tweezer's Ad Nauseam and You Enjoy Myself and Mike's Grooves beginning in 94.
So Charlie, give us a little bit of like how the Rec Music kind of, if it turned into .NET, just kind of how you guys, transitioned to there and started that.
I don't, that's a difficult question because it was such an organic thing. It just sort of, I don't even remember what happened really necessarily. It just grew exponentially with Phish's growth. So in 93, early 94, there were very few people posting on Rec Music Phish. And within a very short amount of time, it was just like, countless people, thousands, and which was a big deal then. And so I would say by, really by 95, 96 is when things were just like so vastly different than what they'd been in 94 that I guess by then it was sort of more like what people today would think of as RMP. There's nothing really like it today. I mean, RMP back then is kind of like, I guess the Phishnet form is, and PT to some extent as well, Fantasy Tour. It was kind of like a commingling of, all sorts of BS, including some real weirdos, who were like Terry Tickle. Just Google that son of a.
Yeah.
But yeah, just some. There was, and also it was, I should mention it was white male dominated up the wazoo. It was just like, people
unlike this podcast.
Like this podcast, yeah, very similar. But it was honestly, it was insane. It was kind of a rough place to some extent for anyone who didn't want to be flamed, mercilessly. Yeah, I was a raging prick. So, but I got it too. It's like I got served plenty of shit. So,
yeah. Charlie,
I deserved, by the way, all of it.
Charlie, you
deserved all of it.
You sort of alluded a second ago to like the growth that happened around 95, 96 when things started to change. We're going to watch a summer 95 show tonight. And I think a lot of people, myself included, I think everybody except for Jonathan on our crew, was not yet seeing shows. It's easy probably, I think, to go back and say, what was the scene like being on the brink of a live one about to come out? Jerry is weeks away from his last show at the Grateful Dead, and there's going to be this big influx of fans. When you look back on it, do you feel like this was kind of the end of like a smaller era, or is that more like a revisionist view?
That's definitely a revisionist view, in my opinion. I remember, well, first of all, like you mentioned, Live One, it was only a few months before that tour, that June 95 tour, when Shelley Culbertson had emailed everybody on RMP and was like, I talked to Trey and, he wants to know what you guys think should go into a live album. And so that was pretty cool, like to get feedback from Trey about, what he wanted to hear on, what we thought we wanted to hear on a live album. But I mean, the thing about, yes, the scene was exploding, but it was still pretty healthy, at least in my view. Like there was no heroin or anything like that. There was nothing that was seemed really messed up, at least that I saw on that tour. Also remember with Deer Creek that folks are going to be seeing shortly. The big thing about that was as Grateful Dead used to play Deer Creek, and I think they started playing it in the late 80s, like probably summer 89 maybe. And after a couple years of playing really good Deer Creek shows, Deer Creek kind of developed this reputation for being this really awesome, venue, especially because a lot of the surrounding community would let Deadheads sleep in their farms, and camp on their farms, like, for nothing, for like $5, and just, it was great. And I went to, I think I made it to Deer Creek in 94. When Traffic was opening. I saw the RFK Dead shows, then I saw Traffic, and then I saw the Grateful Dead shows at Deer Creek. So I saw a bunch of Deer Creek shows in a row the year before, but Phish was playing Deer Creek for the very first time on June 19th, 95. So that was a huge deal for a lot of crossover fans, which frankly there were a ton, at least in my view, who were huge, fans of improvisational rock music, basically. And so there were a lot of people really excited about this Deer Creek show because it was Phish's first show at the Creek. And I remember that it was easy to get camping, around there. At least that's what I heard, because I'm pretty sure I drove right to Blossom after that. Well, shit, I can't remember. But I may have stayed at a farm. I can't remember for sure, and it's not on my show notebook, so I don't know where the stayed. I probably stayed at a farm, frankly. But yeah. So in June 95, a lot of Deadheads were thrilled that Phish was going to be playing Deer Creek, and frankly, I have no doubt that a bunch of people saw their first Phish show at Deer Creek who were Deadheads, what are they all about?
I was I actually put in for Grateful Dead mail order for Deer Creek for that summer and got denied by the Grateful Dead, and I said, well, fuck it, I'll go see Phish there, and I did. So it was my first time seeing Phish seeing anybody at Deer Creek. I would also like to point out we had Andy Gadio on just a few weeks ago for the Virginia Beach 97 show, and this was his first show, was Deer Creek 95. And
I don't think I knew that.
Yeah.
But we have to mention that what happened. 2 weeks later. I mean, so for folks who don't know, 2 weeks after Phish played Deer Creek, the Grateful Dead were supposed to play 2 shows at the Creek. I think it was July 1st and 2nd, or 2nd and 3rd, something like that. Yeah. And there were gate crashers. The whole host of people basically tore down part of the wall, I guess, surrounding the field at the Creek. And apparently during Desolation, I think it was during Desolation Row, which I shouldn't be laughing at that. Anyway, but yeah, it was horrible. So the Dead canceled the second show.
There was also a death threat on Jerry at that night, the first night. And yeah, it was weird, dark, heavy scene, Deer Creek. I'm pretty okay with the fact that they denied my mail order, as it turns out. Looking back on it.
It's funny to me that you guys out there on the East Coast, I mean, coming from DC or Boston, like Deer Creek was like a place to go, a venue. I mean, it's a hike, right?
Yeah, and what's hilarious is like some of my notes, because I was looking at them today from then, Deer Creek had this sort of mythical status among Deadheads, primarily because they played some really good shows there. Like, I think it was the ones that I caught. There was a Shakedown opener, like that was just, it was sweet. And so they had a mythical status. But in my notes, I actually have a note specifically saying that I thought Blossom on June 20th was a much nicer venue than Deer Creek had been, which I had to chuckle at that because I didn't remember feeling that way. But I think it's just an overrated. I think it might be an overrated venue, frankly.
I actually have to say, I found the security was unusually tight and rude, and I really had a bad experience with the people trying to get into the venue. Unfortunately, I was also like an hour early. We got a special guest here.
Hey.
And because we didn't know about the time zone thing in Noblesville, but or whatever county that is. But
yeah, Noblesville.
Yeah,
it's Tater.
So and Phish did release the next night as an archival release.
And for some reason, I didn't go to that show. We have no idea why.
Kevin, in the notes I was listening to it the other day on the notes, Kevin has good things to say, and I don't know, maybe a lot of people felt that way, Charlie.
It's a good
Charlie,
show.
You were talking about the crossover fans and saying that there were a ton of them. I don't want to read into that too much, but like, was Phish already going to be what they were? Like, would Dead fans have stayed on with Phish if Jerry hadn't passed and the Dead had kept touring? Because that's such a popular part of the narrative about Phish's growth, but it seems like it's at least partially kind of false. But I don't have enough.
Wait, did I hear you correctly? Did you just? I mean, there were like incredible Phish fans in '95. I mean, for fuck's sake, I dubbed like, a gazillion tapes for people.
I just mean would Phish have continued to grow in the way they did and continue to play the venues no matter what?
Absolutely. Yeah. They were good. They were really good. They were much better than the great
band in the country.
Well, I mean, they were like unquestionably more talented and skilled on their instruments than Grateful Dead were at that time. I mean, it's like you'd have to be, brain dead if you don't hear the profound differences. I'm just generalizing, but and obviously Jerry. I mean, I love Jerry. In fact, I'm surrounded by Jerry photos, which you can't see. But it's like, in '95, Phish was firing on all freaking cylinders. It's been in June and December, obviously, in particular, and the Dead weren't doing anything close to that, frankly. I mean, I think I was at the Omni in '94 for like the last decent Dark Star, like the Whale Sound Dark Star. Oh, is that the last? Okay, so this is why we kind of need thinking about doing some things with some people to try to get a fishnet kind of thing for Grateful Dead set lists. And by that I mean like really the pre 95, 96 of it. But yeah, like anyway, so because I don't know stuff like that, like I couldn't tell you how many Dark Stars I've ever seen, which I'd kind of like to know, but at least because I'm a nerd that way. But yeah, like even as cool as that Whale Sound Dark Star is, and a lot of the highlights musically of the Dead in like '94 and '95, there was some good stuff in March of '95. It's nothing like, I mean, none of it even comes close to like just the freaking, Mud Island Tweezer, much less like even the Antelope from 19th that people are going to hear if they haven't already in an hour. Well, I guess it's like the end of the first set. It's it's great. It's an excellent antelope. It's not even like, it's not even highlighted on the jam chart. You know what I mean? It's like, and I mean, that's also what's funny about June 19th as a show. Like there's so much greatness in it, yet it's not even like among a lot of versions aren't even among the top for June 95. So no, Phish was going to keep growing, exponentially into 96, 97, and they did.
There was also the point at which there were a lot of Dead fans who couldn't cross over, who weren't going to cross over. Certainly not at that time. Some maybe did later, but they.
There are plenty.
They weren't coming, and yet Phish was still playing these amphitheaters and selling them, certainly enough, even if they weren't quite sold out throughout this tour. They were more or less filling them, and as I said, it was a good scene, and they were playing killer music, which we should probably talk a little bit about.
Nah, we don't talk about music on this.
I want to build it a little bit.
People should come to their own conclusions.
Okay,
or at least
say no more.
Charlie, you can help them come to the conclusion.
Guide their thoughts.
But what I forget often, just kind of building, is that they didn't play until June of 1995. Phish wasn't touring, so this isn't deep into the summer tour, and it's quite the treat. There's some great improvisation just in the first set, and the second set I think is the highlight. But let's start with the first set, and the theme opener I think is one of the highlights, if not my top highlight from it.
I agree.
Well, can I disagree with you?
Go.
I think it's awesome. Wait, Matt, should we show Charlie's set list, or should we wait?
Let's bring that up. And we actually, maybe Charlie shared a bunch of pictures with us.
I can set it on fire right on camera. Just kidding. Just hold the page up and smoke.
Let's
because I want to hear Charlie's notations.
Theme was good. And at the time it was bottom. Now I call it theme. I don't know when I don't know when that started, but yeah, no, it was definitely good. I don't recall it, and I haven't actually checked the jam chart, but I don't think it's highlighted on the jam chart.
I think it is.
Is it really?
Jam chart, yeah.
Okay, because there were like some really good versions of theme that month, and I know I liked it.
Kind of the best year for theme, right? I mean, 95 themes are very good.
Yeah, well, yeah, the main one is the first version is still among my favorites. That Lowell version, it's just hasn't. I just love it. But yeah, I mean, for me, easily the highlight of the first set is the Reba jam. I mean, there's like this really just sublime, this gorgeous, melodic, repetitious kind of groove that develops at one point during the Reba, and it was sick. And I think it's kind of hilarious that on this set list I just wrote Reba, because my other notes show that I clearly liked it a lot. And for what it's worth, just to put this in context, this was a book that a set list notebook, as you can see, that I wouldn't take this into shows. I would just staple the stub to a page and write about who I was with. Rick and John, as you see, are two of my friends from Boston College who were living in or near Deer Creek at that time. Both of them were actually at my first show. They were at the October 89 Paradise show. Anyway, but yeah, the Reba was, for me, I think the highlight of that first set, frankly. But I love getting Tila.
Yes.
I don't think that was my first one.
It was my first one. So I was very excited for it.
Yeah, I love that song. I still love that song. I'm such a sucker for Tila. It's just ridiculous. They can play it at every show.
Back then they played they still played the little coda, which was always good to hear.
Yeah, and if Trey nails it, if Trey nails that, the coda and the closing passages, such a highlight of any set.
Well, I think the bag before was really good, almost 10 minutes, and then the Tila was obviously is a wonderful highlight. Punch you in the eye, middle of the first set.
Yeah, Tila punch you in the eye, right? Reba. I would enjoy that if it showed up again.
We got to talk a little bit about the riff, because RJ and I, years ago, used to talk about the riff test, and if they nail it, you think it's going to be a great show because they seem to be firing on all cylinders. you've proved us wrong by your note here, because I think this is a great show, and the beginning of this riff is as
you're
you
wrong.
mentioned.
It's not even. This show is not even like, I mean, I'm sorry. Like,
it's a good show.
Every Phish show is a great show, especially during a global pandemic, right? So I mean, like, every Phish show is a great Phish show. We all know that, but like, because I mean, as everyone's experiencing right now, I'd rather get the worst show I've ever seen by Phish tomorrow than not have a show. So that being said, I don't, even in context, like even looking back at my old notes, like this show was apparently really well liked by some of the people who were on the tour, the entire tour through the second Man show, which I saw. And I actually made a note of it, that a bunch of people on tour thought Mud Island and Deer Creek were among the best. But for me personally, I thought this was a pretty good show. And then now looking back, and after having heard the entire tour, which of course hadn't happened until at least several months after the tour, after I gotten all the tapes, I remember thinking that this June 19th Deer Creek show was I guess arguably average for the tour for just June 95. It wouldn't even make my top 20 for 1995 in general, but like the Bowie is pretty good, but it's arguably not even one of the best Bowies of the month. You Enjoy Myself is pretty good, but not among the best You Enjoy Myself of the month. Although the Vocal Jam is, I listened to it again because of the note that says sick Vocal Jam. I mean, it is insane Vocal Jam. That has withstood the test of time. That Vocal Jam is still bizarrely, crazy. But anyway, so respectfully, I have to disagree. Yeah, I think your test holds up. Yeah, I think it's a great show, but only like 5 out of 10 on the Scott Jordan concert review poll scale. So I need to tip my hat to
the so-called average great show. So
right,
it's
5 out of 10.
Charlie, so people who can't see, it says botched in parentheses next to riff. So did you always have this point of view? Because now you're known as one of the most jaded vets.
Which is not true, by the way. My wife is a much more jaded vet than I am.
No, you're
also, like, I still love Phish, so it's like you can't be a jaded vet. You just can be a critical one. But
did you always have that perspective, like, since you started? I mean, is that how you see music? I mean, do you, like, look at it that way, or is that just more like
no? Wolf Trap, July 1793. I got it during a perfectly, like, below average version of 2001 because I had just seen it in the movie Being There, and in early July of '93, and commented to friends that wouldn't it be cool if we got this song jammed out sometime by a rock band, and no joke, like 10 days later, Phish opens the second set with it. So I lost my. So I thought it was a sign from God, basically, that I needed to devote my life to Phish's music, basically. I'm not kidding. I was that crazy. And of course, it's a below average version of, 2001. It's like, it wouldn't even make someone's top, like, 80 versions of the song. But no, it's like, I'm sorry. I got distracted by how heavenly sent that experience was at Wolf Trap.
That's all right. I'd like to say this is the first of 2 badly botched riffs that I saw in 1995. So
I think it's refreshing, probably, for a lot of folks who've just started seeing Phish within the last decade to know that Trey used to make mistakes.
They were not that perfect. Was it's a high mark. Even in 95.
Well, even like you look at New Year's 95. Occasionally I listen back to that, and there's flubs in the composed sections of the song.
Oh yeah,
that stuff has always been, but it's how they execute.
Fake news.
Charlie, you sent us a bunch of other pictures. Maybe we should just walk through this. It's kind of like a nice
maybe
of summer '95.
Yeah, let's do it.
If you think so. Did you guys actually appreciate that? Oh yeah, this was kind of hilarious. This is the second Man music show, which was the last of the initial group of shows I saw on that summer tour, which was Walnut Creek, which I freaking had a blast at. Walnut Creek has an incredible You Enjoy Myself, but also I think it's like a half-hour version of Runaway Jim to open the second. Yeah. But I saw both band shows, and this was what you're seeing here on the screen are the small pages. That's my set list that I took down during that show. and Paige McConnell signed it. And I got to say, like, when I saw this, I was like, it was like adorably noob-tastic because I didn't recall this. I didn't recall ever getting their signatures, like, because I'm not like a signature person. Like, I'm not like, hey man, can I get you? I'm just not that. And I don't even get signatures on posters. I'm just not that kind of a person. And I thought I never had been, but apparently Paige McConnell very graciously signed my little mini setlist notebook. Looks like he did it after the show too, for sure, because of where he signed it. And then Mike Gordon, I've got his signature up there on the top right. It looks like ripped out of the same setlist notebook. But the thing is about this, I'm almost positive though I got Mike's signature before the show, because I was at Will Call, probably doing a ticket trade or something, and Mike just I think he was on a bicycle. Like, I don't remember him being on a cart like he used to do, or has done a lot more in the last decade or whatever. But it was like a bicycle maybe. But I remember him just like randomly coming up and being like, "Hey," and I was like, "Oh, hey." Yeah, so this was like, I don't know if I have any. Oh, I got I had an after show for that one. I have no freaking idea how the hell I got that. That was, I have no idea. I mean, maybe I doubt I got it from Mike, although that would be funny if Mike had given me a after show pass before the show at Will Call. That's not the sort of thing I would expect you to do. I don't know. No. Okay, this is hilarious. So I'm almost positive that this is the front of a bootleg Summer 95 tour shirt that I'm almost positive I bought in the parking lot on June 19th, 95 at Deer Creek, because I'm pretty sure it wasn't available in the lot, at least I didn't see it, at Walnut Creek. Or what was it? No, Nissan Pavilion as well. And what other one was before? But yeah, so as you can see, there's a hole. It developed. I wore it thoroughly and developed a hole in it. It's also, you can't really tell, but it's like massively stained. It's like really gross. It's the sort of thing that
I think you can tell the bubbles kind of give away the bootleg, right? I think it looks good otherwise.
Yeah, my wife just said everything you're saying is insane. So
this is why the door is closed to my wife.
Wait, I'm sorry. I misquoted you, honey. What did you say? She said everyone can tell that shirt is stained. I mean, I literally can't, and I'm looking at this picture right here. But anyway, yeah, but it was a bootleg tour shirt, and it was the first bootleg tour shirt I've ever bought. Because as you can see, it's absurd. Trey would probably look at this and be like, dude. And then that's the back of it, which I thought at the time was, pretty good for a bootleg tour shirt. Yeah. I'm not kidding. It probably only cost like $10 because I was so cheap. I mean, I didn't really have any, so I didn't want to spend money on anything. Like I didn't, the official tour shirt, which I think I also sent you the photos of, I didn't even buy on that tour. I bought it later from a friend. But yeah, this was the bootleg Summer 95 tour shirt that was being sold by people who were generally on the entire tour, obviously.
Cellar Door Pavilion, which they wasn't even called by the time the show happened, I think.
Right. So, I didn't even put that together. That's a good point.
So yeah, I was at that one. I bought
most of the Nissan Pavilion.
Yeah, I bought a shirt at Deer Creek as well, and it was in the lot, and it was one of those bounce logo ringers with a like blue ringer. It's in a box somewhere. But
nice.
Couldn't get my hands on it today.
The lube.
Yeah, no, it's still No Fun Pavilion. Nice.
Yeah, so this one, so the Helping Friendly book is in the hat of this lizard. So I bought this shirt in the lot at Wolf Trap on July 17, 93, before the show.
Cool.
And it's ridiculous, obviously. And yeah, so I apparently wore a lot, though. So my taste has changed over the last 25 years because I don't think I could wear that now. Although I am wearing, my Rec Music Phish 94 shirt just for this call. I'll probably never wear it again. But this was sort of a ridiculous tour shirt from back then. And this is the official Summer 95 summer tour. Yeah, tour shirt and Eggplant, I think was the color. And I got it from some people who might be watching. I don't know how many people are watching, but like some people who are on Rec Music Phish in the 90s might remember the name Saul Rosenberg, who was Disco Saul Rosenberg on RMP. He helped me write the initial Tweezer song history for the Phish Companion. He's a rabbi, Chabad, like Queens and New York. So, but he's an amazing person, and he actually had a mint condition summer '95 tour shirt, and I have no idea. I think he may have even a while ago on Twitter said, "I have this extra shirt. Does anyone want it?" And I, or something like that, because it was, I think I got it within the last decade, and I said, I'll donate something. I can't remember what it was, but I'll donate a lot more, obviously, than $10 to whatever charity you want. I think it was his Chabad charity, and to get this shirt from him. And it was, of course, it's really faded, as you'll see if you go to the back too. It's really faded, but he never wore. I'm pretty sure he never wore it. Like it seemed like it was mint condition. But I've actually worn this at least once or twice in the last decade. I think that's right.
Every now and then you got to bust the old ones out,
Yeah, but I cheated. I bought it, as an adult.
It's okay. You're allowed, man.
So, I bought it as an adult.
Let's go back to the music just for a minute, because the Bowie in this show, Jonathan, it probably represents Summer Dive sound pretty well. Given that you guys both saw shows that summer, I didn't see them until the fall, but think of this sound of Summer '95, 25 years later. Like, man, you still, I think you love it, Jonathan, but I don't want to put words in your mouth.
I think it would be accurate to say that I love it. I think it would be accurate to say that I don't need anything else. If I just had Summer '95, or really, I think I'd want December too. Yeah. If I just had 1995 Phish, I would be happy.
Desert Island year for you.
Yeah, I mean, this is where I fall. Everything else is cool. And I had a lot of fun at these shows, and I was in a Nissan. They didn't play it, but I was in the middle of a run of seeing pretty good Bowies as well. So this is
that was a good year for
it's a solid Bowie. And I think it's important to make sure you include the jam from Simple into Bowie when you think about this Bowie, though,
which is incredibly psychedelic.
A few knots, yeah.
Yeah, it's funny. I take issue with that comment that I made on that on my set list, but it's funny in hindsight. It doesn't seem that psychedelic to me. It seems like kind of silly and disjointed.
No, but it's cool.
Yeah, I mean, it's cool, but it's like compared to the Mud Island Tweezer, it's weak, right? I mean,
sure.
That's the thing. So, but I didn't know that at the time. Obviously, I was thrilled because you're thrilled at a Phish show unless you're crazy. But yeah, I mean, in hindsight, it's like, and also that Bowie peaks really well, because I did re-listen to it on my run this morning or yesterday, and the Bowie peaks really well from June 19th, but it's not like even a top 5, arguably, from like the month.
But Charlie, are you a Summer '95? Is it one of your top 2? Do you still go back?
Yeah, I mean, I do, but it's like for Fishnet and Jam Charts, I'm listening to every note that they play, and so I kind of get. It's like when I go back, oftentimes it's because somebody has heard a tease, and so I'll go down a rabbit hole where I'll start listening to the rest of a set. If someone's emails us and says, "Oh, there's a Dave's Energy Guy tease," and just, and of course Scott Marks doesn't want anything to do with it, to his credit, with BEG teases at this point. He pretty much delegates that to me to some extent. But yeah, it's like so I listen to a lot of the 1.0 stuff, just because for Fishnet purposes, but. There are certain go-tos I have, but it's, December '95, if I'm going to pick months, it's going to be December '95 and, fall tour '97, basically everything, so from late '97. And then, but December '95 is just still like, whenever I hear, music from December '95, it's just kind of like, what, it's just so good. It's like even the New Haven show from early '95. Like the only thing that's really good is the tweezer, but the tweezer is like it's just still to this day, just such a magnificent version of the song, and it's just it's hilariously good. Still.
Really good. All right. Well, I think we're gonna wrap up so that people can get ready for this concert. But Charlie, we appreciate you coming on and sharing these with us.
Sure.
Let's do it again.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Really appreciate it.
Do it on the podcast.
Let's do it again the next time they do a 95 or 94 show, right? Good one.
Absolutely.
Yeah, right.
Thanks so much, Charlie.
Sure. Yeah, have a good night.
All right, thanks, everybody. Thanks for see you later.
Bye.
Bye.